So welcome everybody. It is a case that we were talking about the following model. It is we are in chapter 18. We are talking about a fixed exchange rate system, and we analyzed the following shock. So an expansionary monetary policy in this ISZZ LMZZ framework. And there it was a case that first the LMZZ curve shifted to the right because of the fact that the central bank increases like the domestic component of money supply. In a floating exchange rate system, it would be the case that the exchange rate increases, so a depreciation of the domestic currency would occur. So in a fixed exchange rate system, it implies that there is depreciation pressure for the domestic currency. And therefore, like the central bank has to sell reserves. The reserve component of money supply decreases. So the foreign component of money supply decreases. And in the end, we are back on track. So we end up like in the old equilibrium. The level of money supply is the same as before, but the structure of money supply has changed. Some students had difficulties to understand like these effects, and therefore I created like the following numerical example. Please have a look. So we are assuming that we are looking at a recently established economy, and right now there is no money supply in circulation. But like the central bank has a printing press and can print money. So in a first step, like the central bank is printing 600 euros. And then the central bank buys 6 government bonds of 100 euros each. And the government is distributing money to the private households. The 6 government bonds are then stored in the cellar of the central bank. Afterwards, the central bank prints once more, like 400 euro with the printing press, and buys now foreign currency. So the central bank exchanges like 400 euros in the foreign exchange market, and the central bank buys 400 US dollar and stores the banknotes in the cellar. So money supply in circulation, that means in the hands of the private households in the initial scenario A is equal to money supply in scenario A is equal to the home component of money supply plus the foreign component of money supply. So it's 600 plus 400. A money supply in circulation, that means in the hand of private households, is equal to like 1,000 euros. Now, we are switching to scenario B. So the central bank performs an expansionary monetary policy. So the central bank prints once more 100 euros and buys one additional government bond of 100 euro. So the government distributes the money once more to the private households, and one additional government bond is stored in the cellar of the central bank. So money supply in circulation in scenario B is now equal to money supply in scenario B is equal to the home component plus the foreign component. It's 700 plus 400 units. It's 1,100 units. But due to this monetary expansion, it is the case that the domestic currency is getting weak. There is some depreciation pressure, and therefore the central bank has to defend like the fixed exchange rate system. The foreign currency tends to be strong, and therefore the central bank gets 100 US dollar out of the cellar and sells the 100 US dollar against 100 euro. The central bank burns the 100 euro note in an oven so that this is gone. And the US dollar reserves in the cellar of the central bank decreases from like 400 US dollar to 300 US dollar. So the intervention in the foreign exchange market reduces the euro amount in circulation in the hands of private households like by 100 units. So money supply in circulation in scenario C is equal to the 700 euros from the home component plus there are 300 euros still in circulation from the foreign component, so it's 1,000 euros once more. So when we compare the level of money supply in scenario A and C, it is the case that money supply is constant. However, like the structure of money supply is different. Like in scenario A, it was the case that the home component was equal to 600 and the foreign component was equal to 400. And in scenario C, it is the case that the home component is equal to 700 and the foreign component is equal to like 300 units. So what has changed is especially like the assets which are located in the cellar of the central bank, they are different in scenario A and compared to scenario C. So in A, it was the case that 6 government bonds were lying in the cellar of the central banks and like 400 US dollar. And in the new situation, it is the case that 700 or like 7 government bonds are in the cellar of the central bank and only 300 reserves. So 300 US dollar in reserves are still in the cellar of the central bank. So when the central bank tried to perform an expansionary monetary policy, it is the case that this led to a situation where the reserves in the cellar of the central bank decreased. So in case that there is another shock in the future, the central bank has less reserves in order to defend the fixed exchange rate. Thank you very much for watching this video. Have a nice day and bye-bye.